Hello and welcome to another episode of the Property Edge podcast. Today, get your crystal balls out. We're looking 5 years into the future, 2030. What does your real estate agency look like? Just think about how much has changed over the last 5 years. 2020 was the beginning of COVID. Imagine how much change has happened in your workflows and the tools that you use today, and then push that forward another 5 years to what it will look like in 2030. Remember, AI is going to accelerate this. On this journey today, I am joined by real estate principal, auctioneer extraordinaire, Mr. Mark Lands from Lands Real Estate. Mark, welcome to the Property Edge podcast.
Thanks for having me, Rob. Appreciate it, mate. Very grateful to be here.
Really good to be here and to have a chat with you here. The last time I saw you was on the auctioneering, the national auctioneering competition, watching you on stage smash it. So well done for your work there. But let's actually hear about your work. Who are you and where did you come from?
Yeah, so Mark Lands, my business is Lands Real Estate. My dad started this, the better part of 40 years ago. I've been in the industry for 22 years. My wife and I have run the business here ourselves for about the last 5 years. So my whole journey has been as a salesperson and then building an EBU, doing that for a long period of time. And then as an extension of that, just kind of slowly growing the team. And then when we took over the business, learning how to run a business and grow the rent roll and grow the team, and still very much probably at base camp. So just still chipping away at it. But yeah, have enjoyed it, be very grateful for the opportunities that I've had through this industry. Yeah, very fortunate.
Let's start with a fundamental. We'll fast forward to 2030. What is not going to change? What are those principles in real estate that's still going to hold true in 2030 that's true today?
So clearly it's an opinion, but my opinion is that it's the connection between people that will hold true. So, our main role as a sales agent is to build meaningful connections with people. And our main role as property managers is to help facilitate and protect our landlords through trust and understanding those processes. So I think as I sit here now, the main things that will hold true are the people that are the best at having meaningful connections and understanding people and treating people well will be kind of at the forefront of the industry.
So given that it is those interpersonal skills that won't change, how are the people skill sets themselves and the people within the agency going to be affected or changed?
Well, I think we're going to need people who, already it's the case, you need people to accept the rate of change that's there and be able to go along with it and sustain the rapid rate of change that we're all experiencing. I think, probably I would assume across, many industries. So the skill sets will, from a frontline and from a revenue generation perspective, are going to be those maintaining those connections. And then on the other side of the business, the more internal side, we're going to have to make sure that the skill sets are there. And I suppose the training from an agency level so that the people that are in the business can actually exploit the tools to the best of their ability. And I think the businesses who recruit that way and build those platforms in the most efficient way possible are the ones that, will be leading the charge in that space.
Yeah, that's interesting there. So if you look at your platforms right now, they're going to become far more important because if one agency is doing it, then every agency wants to use it if it's such a good platform. So there's going to be a lot of a potentially increased reliance on these platforms, which means it becomes a real point of exposure for you as a business owner, doesn't it, to have all this tech running there? So you're probably going to need more tech savvy ops managers, people like that. You'll also probably need a different structure behind the scenes to run your office, wouldn't you?
It would. And I think that's the journey that's gone from the administrative back end that's shifted to a balance of onshore and offshore administration that's then been streamlined through automation. We understand automation is great, but the variables are the exposure point there. And then from automation naturally leading towards AI. And I suppose as the platforms continue to develop down that channel, I would imagine, and I suppose what we've seen in our business to date, there's certain areas where we get huge amount of value out of improving those processes. And that's a real, and to your point, like there are going to be platforms that people plug into, and they're a plug and play platform. But I think, having the ability to kind of bespoke build or add on or develop systems that are specific to your business is also important. Not everyone's in a position to do that, but that's where I think you then can get a lot more leverage if you can make things very relevant to what you do. So yeah, I'm not sure if that entirely answers your question, but we definitely are reliant upon those systems, and it will be more and more so because they're going to be shouldering more and more of the load. But the aim of them is to empower the people that are, sitting in the seats, and to give them a more tranquil day and way to go about their work, hopefully, in a more just consistent, methodical way, because the most consistent people in this business are the ones that win.
So on that, what technology will give? At the moment, it is making life easier, so agents and property managers can focus on hopefully more important work, right? But the chances are it's going to mean there's going to be more volume of important work provided to salespeople. If AI can outreach and generate more leads, for example, if AI can manage the back of house for property management better, it might mean there's a lot more outreach work or person-to-person work that property managers need to do. So there's going to be a bit of a balance here when it comes to how much one person can actually handle. So do you see that the back of house staff will change and maybe shrink a little bit, but front of house staff might be the ones that actually increase in numbers?
Yeah, that would be, in an ideal sense, absolutely would be great for that to work. Certainly an office, I mean, of our size, it's different when you get to different scales. But, if I look at our business, really everyone that's here onshore really should be qualified to be, and registered to either be in the PM space or the sales space. Don't get me wrong, there's one or two roles that, yes, are, more accounting based and different things like that and financials, but really you're exactly right. And, even our kind of humble journey to where we are and the systems that we've pushed ahead over the last, 4 years, the aim of those systems have been to create time, and it started in our PM business, but to create time for our property managers to be more like relationship builders. Now, don't get me wrong, the reality of the day in, day out is still you are reacting, and it's, all of the challenges are still there. But if we can just free that capacity up, the decision then from the business standpoint is, well, what do we dedicate that to? So, because we're all in sales, even property managers, you're still fostering a relationship, earning trust so that you can deploy, what's required to be deployed for the client. So yeah, I really feel that in an ideal world, it means we have more people generating revenue and less people not generating revenue, but you still have to hold those standards. And so your exposure point is, as you've raised, well, if those systems fall away, what's your backup plan and your contingency and how you're managing that risk as an agency, which is there's a long answer to that. And I'm not entirely sure I have it at this moment.
No, and I think if you did have it, you wouldn't be telling us on this podcast. You'd be monetizing it yourself.
Copy that.
If we're looking at what's changed in the last 5 years, I mean, property management platforms themselves have added so much value and taken away so many of the mundane, small tasks that have to be done for every single property under management. And you fast forward that another 5 years, you can imagine that changing once again. So apart from that property management space, what other parts of the agent's day can you see in the short to medium term, this next 5 years, being directly impacted by the tools, the tech that they use?
Look, it's what, like our journey, and I guess what we've experienced from the sales side of the business, and we're pushed quite hard to create a platform where our salespeople can transact a great volume of properties with a smaller amount of support staff, and then the support staff that they're employing are more leverage agents and revenue generating and creating new salespeople, as I suppose the structure that we go for. So we have pushed very hard in that regard. And the best way that I can explain how we've approached it is our offshore team and our automation and so forth is interjecting with a lot of the micro parts of each specific process. So we have a trigger in our business, and then off the trigger, there's your series of steps to complete your workflow. And so, what is the given trigger? It might be a form that you submit to book an appraisal. And then once that trigger is instigated, what happens and how is it delegated? And so, all the way to, you want to input into one system that goes into your other platforms. So we're not going straight into our CRM, we're going to a workflow management platform that then populates across. The workflow platform delegates tasks more efficiently than our CRM does. Our CRM does other things more efficiently, or that our workflow platform doesn't do. And then that's going to filter over into your Google Workspace, and because we're working out of our Google calendars, not our CRM or our workflow calendars. And so, even in that small conversation, you can see there's multiple platforms. So how do you find the right amount of automation? And I suppose, obviously, well, undoubtedly, AI is going to become more and more effective at that. And I think there'll be, well, I'm not sure I could say I think there'll be, but I imagine there'll be challenges for the tech companies to ensure that they've got their relevant APIs and accessibility for the automations to allow them to integrate across platforms. And the businesses that don't have that, I mean, we've got AML coming in, the anti-money laundering responsibility. So it's, doing business in my short period of doing it hasn't gotten simpler or less arduous or less expensive. So it's just going to be the case. And so there is a requirement to be efficient and effective with these systems to create the ability to generate more revenue, because it will just cost more money to do business. What you may save in wages, if indeed that actually happens, it'll just get spent somewhere else. There's a pie and everyone wants their slice of it. So how can we find, and I look at it at the moment from our perspective. I think our responsibility with AI, because it's far beyond my pay grade, is just to ensure that we're with it and integrating it to the best of our ability. But then in relation to understanding things like ChatGPT, and if, the team's in there or whatever it is we just need to make sure we're using effective prompts. And so if our prompts can be better than the consumer's prompts or our competitors' prompts, maybe we're going to get more value out of it. And so it's a really probably archaic way to think about it at the moment. But yeah, we're slow learners, so we'll just keep chipping away at that.
Well, I think that goes to a fundamental that is timeless, is that whoever uses the existing tools the best tends to benefit the most out of them. And
Yeah.
and perhaps that brings us to something really interesting, right? Which is technology as a whole has become very democratized. So tomorrow, I have no real estate experience. Tomorrow, I could jump into your turf and I could subscribe to a whole load of different platforms. And then I could start doing ads on the similar platforms that you might be doing ads. And I could try and compete with you guys, right?
Yep.
But why won't I win?
Well, I mean, maybe you would. You could be pretty good. Look, I think because it comes back to the core function of what we do is to transact property, manage property, and help people through the emotional journey of that. And the points that you raised are points that facilitate it, but they're not it, right? That's not the business. The business is not that. The business is, that's portions of what we need to do to arrive at that endpoint, but it's not actually what we do as a job. So the outcome is what we get paid for. So there's certainly efficiencies in the point you raised about I might have, a great ability, or maybe it's not AdWords anymore, who knows, whatever it is, but, a great funnel to capture leads in a geographical area. And okay, but then, all right, now I might have a great, chatbot that engages those people. But at some point in the relationship, you're going to need to be there in front of them. Okay, we can get our AI call, dump a whole bunch of numbers and have our AI bot call them, but there's still latency issues. There's still a point when you've got to sit down and someone's going to go, because what we do is both property managers and salespeople, but in the sales transactions particularly, is our job is driven by change in people's lives. So if people's lives change, we'll have something to do. And change is one of the least comfortable things out there. And when you put that next to large sums of money, that's why it's such a intense process. And so I think the points you raised at this point in time don't answer that question. So that's why perhaps you won't succeed.
So that being the case, and I'm trying to compete with you in your area using exactly the same tools, what are the personal qualities that are going to rise to the top, that are going to help me achieve that. Take away all the tech tools once again. If I'm just going head to head with you, no experience versus someone who has experience, what are those personal qualities that will mean you beat me?
There's two things that are required to succeed, in this business, and they are skill and volume. So they're the two requirements. And so you either have the skill set, and the skill set talks to connecting with people and reading the play and so forth. And then separate to skill, you have volume. So there's a certain amount of work that needs to be done. And so the barrier to entry into this industry, as has been widely documented, is very low. So what you need to do to be qualified. So the barrier to entry is low, but the price of admission, if you want to perform, is extremely expensive, right? And that comes back to the volume and the consistency part. So yeah, great, you can get in and whatever, but if you actually want to compete and if you actually want to be in the arena, so to speak, the price of admission is high. It is very, very high because the people you go up against are phenomenal at what they do, right? That are consistently out there with their sideboards up, winning business. They are combining these two elements. And a lot of people have skill. And unfortunately, the people that are highly skilled but don't have the same level of consistency and volume will have results that'll go like this, and they'll rely upon that skill, to have a great conversion. And then there's the people that aren't as skilled, but that are just at it day in, day out. My experience tells me they'll have a far more consistent career. Their results will be far more consistent. And it's when you put skill and volume together, that's when it's a very compelling proposition. And that's the top couple of percent. And so someone who has the skill that knows they could rely on it, but that doesn't, is going to be very difficult to beat. So I think that will continue to hold true. And just obviously what the shape of someone's day looks like and where that volume is directed will of course evolve and change. And I think, a skill set that's required now that perhaps wasn't required when I first started, but was less required, was the ability to deal with distractions. So, I mean, I'm sitting here now and my phone is diverted and if someone else has it, but my Mac is hooked up to my iMessages. It's like I've had about 9 message texts come in since we've been talking. And I don't want to go and click mute on this because I don't know what I'll actually mute if I do that. So it's the ability it's going off again. It's the ability just to park the distractions and focus on what matters. And that's the difference between being busy and being productive. And I think it's very easy to be busy. And I'm to blame myself a lot of the time, but busy doesn't always mean being productive. And I think fulfillment comes, certainly for me, when you complete a day that was a productive day and you actually did the things that mattered, even if they weren't the easy things. And so the sheer volume of distractions that come at us in this day and age are really, really challenging. So I think if AI and platforms and systems can streamline things so we have less distraction, but we can have trust that what needs to be delivered is being delivered, that'd be obviously a really wonderful place to be.
I mean, that's some really deep stuff there, and it's probably stuff that needs to be put on postcards and posted to people because I think that's timeless, and it's both timeless and it's completely cross-industry, right? It's not just real estate.
Correct.
Your point there about AI making it less distracting or potentially only feeding you things that you need to know now to be productive is really interesting, and that's hopefully something that will happen.
So absolutely, what you need to see, and I, whilst the journey is for us is less about AI so far, we've developed different systems over the course of this last 12 months from our workflow platform, and the biggest change that happened, because if you looked at the back end of our current workflow platform to what it was Airtable, it's now the Hub, it kind of looked the same. But we now just have a very, very different interface. And that interface is only showing people the data they need, as opposed to how we previously worked, was showing everyone all the data on this grid. And it was flagging them with what they needed to do, but there was so much that they could see. So we just really worked back. into more of an interface. So to your point, you can go and find what the extra should you choose to, but it's just not there unless you need to do it. And the progression of that is then getting the team out of email and into workflows. And so, and that's a long conversation. You have a tile that triggers you when there's a step to be done. The team's natural response is to say, can you set up an email notification for when something hits my workflows? And it's that sounds like a simple thing, but we're so ingrained that's where we work out of, and it's just really, really inefficient. So I think, building a system where you actually work out of it, you communicate out of it, and then you're in it, the nirvana is your email is only your outbound out of your organization coming in. That's wonderful. And then from your inter-organization, it's within your platforms.
So, I mean, right there, you've painted a brilliant picture of what 2030 could look like, right? So you've got a platform that does so much for you, probably pushing more volume of business your way, but only giving you tasks or showing you information as you need it, making your life easier and helping you progress through the journey as opposed to just flashing things your way that have to be done. That's a really interesting insight. Thank you for that. So,
Sure.
Just finally, I've got one last question for you.
Yeah.
Lands Real Estate goes belly up. Everything goes pear-shaped. You decide, oh my God, I've got to start a new real estate agency. It's 2030 right now. Who do you first hire?
So this is happening in 2030 as opposed to now.
Yeah, you've got amazing tech. You've got everything that you know everything that you've just spoken about, but you've got no one with you on this journey.
Probably the first person I would hire, it would be someone smarter than me. So the first person I would hire would be someone smarter than me that knows more than I do about things that I don't know. So I would sit down and probably try to understand what are my weaknesses. Wouldn't take long. And then I would look at my journey to hear it. Like, I think I could have got, not that I'm anywhere, but like, I think I could have progressed quicker if I had different people at different key points, but I didn't have either the confidence or the courage to do that earlier than I've done it. So I would identify my biggest shortcomings and find somebody who can complement those. And that would probably be on a back end, consistent, hit the marks every day, be able to deploy the ideas that I have. So that's who I would hire first.
That is a good answer. And I challenge all the other principals who are listening or watching to that to consider that. Are they the smartest person in their business, or have they hired people who can help them with their weaknesses? That is absolute gold. Mark, on that note, I think we'll end it there. Thank you so much for joining us today.
No, it's a pleasure, Rob. Thanks for having me, mate. Yeah, very grateful.
Well, I think you've dropped a lot of learning bombs here today, and I know people are going to get value out of it. For everyone listening or watching, thank you for your time, giving up your time today to listen to this. For other episodes, please do head over to the Property Edge website, propertyedge.app. Of course, you can look at our research platform there as well. And until the next episode, bye-bye.